Good afternoon, everyone. Wait for everybody to get in here. We're going to be going over the Jay-Z news. There's a lot going on with the lawsuit against him and Diddy, and then his big response with his own lawsuit that was filed a couple weeks ago against Tony Buzbee, and the back and forth that we're seeing between them just in the last couple of days. There's really been a lot going on. So I hope everybody's been able to check out my article on legalaffairsandtrials.com. This is on my Substack. If anyone who subscribes got this in their inbox last night, but it goes over basically everything we know so far. We've got the court documents all linked in here. We've got a couple videos that I did last night summing up the cases, and just kind of looking at what we're going to see going forward. The current issue right now is whether the plaintiff will be allowed to proceed anonymously. And this case was actually filed, the lawsuit was originally filed against Diddy and his companies back on October 20th. And what's interesting is since Diddy has been charged in criminal court, he has not had lawyers doing notices of appearances in these lawsuits from Tony Buzbee. He had some lawyers working civil cases that were filed before his criminal cases, but so far we haven't seen him mount a defense in these civil cases so far. So Tony Buzbee's requests to proceed anonymously have been okayed by the judges in most of the cases, like all but one that I know of, but there's no opposition that's been filed from the defense. And all the approvals to proceed anonymously are preliminary. There's like another procedure that they're going to go through. It's in various stages with the different attorneys. But back in October, November, there was no defense counsel active in this case. So the judge, Annalisa Torres, actually approved the request to proceed anonymously, but she said in her order that this was subject to being revisited. So when Tony Buzbee on Sunday night, who's the attorney representing many plaintiffs in lawsuits against Diddy, when he filed the amended complaint that names Shawn Carter, who's Jay-Z, he also included a new request to proceed anonymously. And you think he has some momentum in his favor because the judge has already approved that. But like I said, it was before we had defense counsel in this case. And now we've got defense counsel in this case by way of Quinn Emanuel and Alex Spiro. And I'm thinking that they've already filed their opposition to proceeding anonymously. And in cases where that's actually been litigated, the big one is it's not a Tony Buzbee lawsuit. It's the Wigder law firm, which actually represents Cassie in her lawsuit. Shortly after Cassie's lawsuit was settled last year in 2023, they filed a new lawsuit on behalf of a Jane Doe, and that went through a pretty lengthy litigation process where Diddy's attorneys opposed her proceeding anonymously. And that was back before he'd been charged with a crime. So he was really putting a lot of resources into his civil counsel and fighting these cases. And he didn't have very many cases at that time. They had started to mount, but this was like the first lawsuit that he really had. And he was putting a big defense on it before, and this was even before his house was raided. So the judge ruled back in February. She's a 2023 Biden appointee. This is Jessica Clark. She ruled back in February that that sided with Diddy's attorneys and said that the plaintiff needed to identify herself. Here, let me pull up that part of the article here. And except she made the exception, so it wasn't an immediate order. It said that it could wait until after she ruled on these dismissal motions that were pending, with the idea being if she ends up dismissing the entire case, it's moot and the plaintiff would never identify herself because the case would just go away. On December 5th, Judge Clark ruled on those dismissal motions, and she dismissed Bad Boy Entertainment and then the other company, Daddy's House, as defendants, but she keeps Combs and then also Pierre from the Bad Boy Entertainment president. So with the case proceeding, Wigder Law filed the new complaint that identifies the plaintiff. So there's that one. And then there's also an interesting Busby lawsuit. One of the like 21 to 20, I've heard 21, 24 lawsuits that he's filed in the last couple of months. Like I said, there's no opposition and no defense being mounted from Diddy in any of those lawsuits. So most of the judges have allowed them to proceed preliminary anonymously. There's going to be more litigation on that. But one judge said, no way. And it was actually a 2019 Trump appointee. But she did this pretty much on her own without, like I said, without any opposition from a defense lawyer. But she rejected Busby's request for an anonymous plaintiff in a lawsuit that was filed on behalf of a Tennessee woman who says that she was raped in 2004. Back when she was a college student. And then Busby filed a reconsideration request, and the judge again rejected that. And so he filed a new complaint the next day naming the woman. And I know that's been addressed. I know the Wigder law firm issued a statement to Rolling Stone about the other woman who's identified herself, saying that, she's not afraid, and, they're not afraid to hide their identities here. So I think Jay-Z's request that she not be allowed to proceed anonymously, when that actually gets litigated, I think it has some weight to it. The issue is it's not going to happen immediately. It could, but I mean, they seem to, the request is a little out there, and then it asks for that, but then it also asks or for the case to just be dismissed. And like I said, there is legal grounds to make a case for the plaintiff to have to identify herself. But I'm not sure right now there's really any legal grounds for just dismissal on that, unless they come forward and have, all this evidence showing the entire case is just, completely made up. Because right now they're kind of hinting on that. But what we've really seen is a lot of bad stuff about Tony Buzbee, who's the plaintiff's attorney on this. And I mean, today, kind of the latest news that I've seen, and I'm anticipating a filing from Tony Buzbee today. We still have not seen a response to him for his request for expedited hearing. And I see people talking about the identities of the victims. I linked to the complaints here in the article, but when I've worked at newspapers, and at least the news agencies I've worked for, all kind of have a standard of we generally don't identify victims or alleged victims or people who claim sex abuse. I mean, it's out there, it's fine, but just because other people are identifying them doesn't mean that we need to. But their names are out there, and they're identifiable. So, and it's all linked there in the article. But the big stuff today is Jay-Z's lawyer, Alex Spiro, filed a new letter saying that a woman contacted his office yesterday after seeing, all this news about Tony Buzbee. She contacted the office about her experience with Tony Buzbee. It says when she declined to adopt the version of events proposed by members of the Busby firm, she was summarily dropped as a client. It's a little hard to read here, but we can get it on the screen. Yeah. So I actually just find the whole back and forth between Tony Buzbee and Jay-Z to be kind of exhausting. I mean, they've definitely established that, I mean, all this other stuff about Tony Buzbee, but I think people are just kind of waiting for the focus to return to the actual case. And I guess they'd say that that's why they're trying to identify the victim. I mean, or the alleged victim or the plaintiff, they're trying to mount a defense here. But we have heard about the extortion lawsuit, and let me pull that up, because that was originally filed in LA Superior Court. It's still there, back on November 18th under a John Doe name. And I remember seeing it back then. There was so much going on with the YSL trial and things like that, there just was so much to keep track of. But I remember seeing the lawsuit and seeing that it was Quinn Emanuel and just kind of wondering to myself, I wonder if that's Jay-Z. I mean, I didn't have any confirmation one way or the other, but here we go. It is. And it seems like, I mean, obviously this was filed to try to stop whatever was coming from Tony Buzbee. I mean, that's just completely obvious. They basically admit that in here because they're saying that this is extortion. But they're saying that this is, repeated demands based on, false allegations that he's asking for money. Tony Buzbee has said that he asked for a confidential mediation, which of course I think the response to that would be, well, the only thing a lawsuit really seeks is money. But in terms of an extortion claim, I mean, there's really just nothing there. I can't imagine this lawsuit is actually going to go anywhere because we've seen extortion cases against attorneys. Of course, we've seen Michael Avenatti was criminally prosecuted for extortion, but that was completely different than this. And that, they actually had Avenatti going over to meeting with these lawyers, and they had him on tape recording, strong arming him, trying to, saying that he's going to take a bunch of money off their stock value and hold a big press conference if they don't give him 10 million, et cetera, et cetera. So here it seems like we just have some correspondence asking for some kind of mediation. Busby claims that he never asked for money. So whether this actually rises to the level of it's certainly not a criminal extortion case, of course not. Whether there's any legs to the civil case, I wouldn't expect this to really go anywhere, except maybe they'll do. Usually we see anti-SLAPP motions. The SLAPP law in California is pretty strong, the anti-SLAPP, and they have that in other states too, but it's like strategic lawsuits against public participation, and that would probably qualify for this. But like I said, it seems like this was just a strategic move by Jay-Z to get out ahead of this story. And then, I mean, because really from day one, he's already has this extortion claim out there along with the news of the lawsuit. So I wouldn't really expect more from that. But one thing to remember about, and because I think a lot of people who are defending Jay-Z are like, oh, Tony Buzbee's, just like a Michael Avenatti. It's like, well, remember, Michael Avenatti's clients overall had legitimate cases. That's one of the hallmarks of these lawyers who are supposedly so scummy is it's not that maybe some of them do, but I covered Michael Avenatti extensively, and I can't think of one incident where he was actually like inflating cases. I mean, he latched on to the Kavanaugh thing, and some people can debate whether he made up victims there, but his actual lawsuits and stuff that he litigated in court were pretty legitimate cases. It was just he was stealing the money at the end. That was the problem. So I mean, and we've seen there's all sorts of allegations with Tony Buzbee, and he has a long history of that. But it seems like eventually they're going to have to get off Tony Buzbee and focus on, okay, how does Tony Buzbee being such a bad guy, what does that mean for this case actually? Like, is this just a completely fabricated? Because I mean, that seems to be what they're saying in their filings, is that this is just a completely fabricated allegation. But remember, this is filed a couple weeks ago, and it doesn't identify Jay-Z, but it's completely confirmed now that this is Jay-Z. And it says plaintiff John Doe is the victim of a scheme by defendant Anthony Buzbee and his firm, the Busby law firm, who are shamelessly attempting to extort exorbitant sums from him or else publicly file wildly false, horrific allegations against him. Defendants have threatened to unleash entirely fabricated and malicious allegations of sexual assault, including multiple instances of rape of a minor, both male and female. And I thought that was interesting when I saw that last night, because, I mean, as everybody knows right now, the allegation right now involves somebody who was a 13-year-old girl in the year 2000. So we haven't heard anything about a male from Tony Buzbee's side. So that seems to be an indication of things to come. But yeah, thanks thanks guys for tuning in. We've kind of got a small crowd here, but if you guys could hit the like button and let everyone know that we're here. There's so much going on. I'm hoping to do another get another YSL interview going on with some of the lawyers. I'd like to interview really all of the lawyers, but I wanted to sum up this Jay-Z lawsuit. But again, this is the extortion lawsuit that he filed back on November 18th that indicates there could be more to come here, because again, we now know that Jay-Z is John Doe, who sued Tony Buzbee back on November 18th, and he says he's shamelessly attempting to extort him, threatening to publicize wildly false, horrific allegations against him. And that would be, of course, the allegation that came out Sunday night in the lawsuit against Diddy that says that both Diddy and Jay-Z attacked a 13-year-old girl in 2000. And it was witnessed by an unidentified female celebrity. They're not identifying her in the complaint, which I think is obviously a key witness either way. I mean, if this did or didn't happen, that person should be able to talk all about it. But I see somebody asking, Obi, when will either lawsuit go to trial? I don't see this going to trial for a while. And the problem is going to be, even if Jay-Z, if it does survive dismissal motions, which is always tough, that's going to be a couple years of litigation I mean, I wouldn't expect any kind of like immediate dismissal. The remedy right now that they're really looking for is make her identify herself. And the biggest ruling that they have is actually somebody who didn't have to identify herself until after dismissal motions were decided. And that was like a 6 or 7 month process. But the catch here is Diddy being charged with a criminal case. Like I said, he didn't even have lawyers appearing in these Busby lawsuits right now. And it'll be really easy for him to get at least his role in the case stayed pending the outcome of his criminal case, because he can't be expected to sit for any depositions or open up discovery or anything like that while he has this criminal case pending, because it's, he has a Fifth Amendment right. And they would, if his lawyers finally do a notice of appearance in these lawsuits, it'll be to stay everything, I'd imagine. But of course, that doesn't include Jay-Z. So I'm a little unclear on how that would, I don't see how they could go to trial with a co-defendant not being able to participate in the process like that. So I think that could be a big catch. But we're going to see a lot of stuff. Hopefully, I think we're going to see another filing today, probably from Tony Buzbee. But in the next few weeks, I think we should see something. Somebody says, I'm really confused about how the victim can remain anonymous. And of course, this is the issue that was dealt with in Judge Clark's case so much, where she ruled the victim, the plaintiff, needed to identify herself. And let's bring up her order here. It was in February, because she like I said, overall, the case law does not favors eventual identification. It's just a matter of when. And I also think it's important to know that it's just the public identification that's the issue. Like in this lawsuit that was filed, that Judge Clark was doing, I think the idea is that Diddy and his team would always know through the discovery process who the plaintiff is. But whether she's being forced to publicly identify herself is another thing. And if she's not forced to publicly identify herself, there could be protective orders in place about her identity. So the lawyers would know themselves, but there's a whole public identity aspect to it that kind of changes it. But the filings here are interesting to read. This is Judge Clark's order from back in February, rejecting anonymity. And she even says the court recognizes that public disclosure of Doe's identity could have significant impact on her, particularly given the graphic and disturbing allegations in this case. Oops. says, while the court does not take plaintiff's concerns lightly, the court cannot rely on generalized, uncorroborated claims that disclosure would harm plaintiff to justify her anonymity. Without more specific support, plaintiff fails to overcome the prejudice to defendants in public interest factors implicated here. It says, indeed, similar motions to proceed anonymously in sexual assault lawsuits involving public figures, including Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein, were likewise denied. For these reasons and further detailed herein, the court denies plaintiff's motion. The court, however, stays the effect of this order until after the court decides defendant's pending motion for judgment on the pleadings. So this was back in February when that was issued. And like I said, her order on the dismissal motions was just issued 5 days ago. So that was a good 7 months where she still didn't have to identify herself. But now that the dismissal motions have been decided, she has been identified. So like I said, the case law definitely favors Jay-Z's request for identification, but it doesn't really say much about the timing of how immediate it needs to happen. I mean, the idea that if the judge says, yes, she needs to identify herself, that it's just going to happen tomorrow, it could, because that is basically what happened with this other judge who in one of Busby's lawsuits, just on our own. Like I said, most of the judges are allowing Busby to proceed anonymously preliminarily. It'll be litigated more later on. And of course, one issue is, like I said, Diddy doesn't have any lawyers working these cases. So it's judges being asked to do something that no one on the record is actually opposing. So it's like, I mean, of course they're doing it. But in this case, she's a 2019 Trump appointee, Mary Kay Viscasil. She rejected Busby's request for an anonymous plaintiff. And this was just back in November. And that all happened pretty fast. I think it was November 5th she issued her initial order. Busby got a motion to reconsider and pretty fast. And then she rejected it on November 12th. And then later that day, he'd filed his complaint naming her. So it just depends. I mean, it depends on what Judge Annalisa Torres wants to do. She could take the route of Judge Mary Kay and say, identify yourself now, or she could take the route of Judge Clark and say, you're going to have to identify yourself, but let's deal with the dismissal motions that we know we're inevitably going to get here before we do that. Yeah. So this is Judge Mary Kay's order here. But I wanted to bring up, I did a couple TV appearances yesterday that I thought summed things up well. One was CBS Chicago. I've got it on my page here. Let me pull that up and play it for y'all. Try to get some other stuff going here.
Girl along Shawn Diddy Combs more than 20 years ago. The news comes after an amended lawsuit was refiled yesterday. The civil complaint initially filed against Combs in October now names Jay-Z as a co-defendant. Claims the two took turns sexually assaulting the teenager, then unnamed, at a private party after the MTV Music Awards in 2000.
Joining us now to talk about these explosive allegations is legal affairs journalist Meghann Cuniff. Meghann, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start by letting our viewers know that right after that lawsuit became public, Jay-Z did issue a statement, and it said in part, the allegations are, quote, so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Now, the you in this is the lawyer of the plaintiff, Tony Buzbee. That's who Jay-Z is accusing of blackmail. A lot of people, I think, were surprised by how fiery that statement was. So what are you hearing about Jay-Z's response?
No, I've heard that the response can go two ways here. He can either settle quietly or he can fight. And if he fights, he needs to be aggressive about it. And that seems to be what he's doing here by being aggressive about it. There's also been some filings in the court case from his lawyer that indicates they are ready to take this before a judge and demand the identity of the plaintiff. And then they also want the case dismissed.
So walk us through this, Meghann. What also happens next?
The immediate issue, and we've seen this in a lot of other lawsuits that have been filed against Shawn Combs, is whether the plaintiff can proceed anonymously. And the judge in this case actually did rule about a month ago that there was reason for her to proceed anonymously under a Jane Doe name. But now that there is a new complaint, that process will start over again. And this will be the first time that there has been serious defense litigation against that. And other lawsuits we've seen against Combs, that has favored Combs in the fact that the judge has ordered that the plaintiff does need to identify herself. So that is going to be the most immediate issue here.
Interesting. Now, I know you don't have insider information on this case, but if you could look into your crystal ball or just with your legal knowledge, do you think this is just the tip of the iceberg? And do we expect more celebrity names linked to these crimes that Diddy is facing?
Tony Buzbee, the plaintiff's attorney, when he announced that he had 120 people lined up to file lawsuits, indicated that a lot of big names could come out. And just in this lawsuit alone, there is still an unidentified celebrity that I think everyone is speculating about who it could be. And also, it could be a very powerful witness on either side. So just in this case, there's another celebrity who could be named. But Tony Buzbee has indicated there are other celebrities. And if we're going to believe Jay-Z's allegations about extortion, we'd have to expect that he's not the only one being targeted here.
Meghann Cuniff, we appreciate your insight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, that was a good one. CBS Chicago, I like going on there. But one thing I wanted to bring up was it's interesting to read the request for anonymity, because Busby, he's filed so many lawsuits that he kind of has a template that he just uses for all of his cases, that the anonymity request that's not really that lengthy. But in the other lawsuit, the one with Judge Clark, that she ruled the plaintiff needs to identify herself, there's a motion filed in that. I see people asking about Tony Buzbee's most recent claim, and let's bring that up, because I mean the tit for tat on social media here is so much. But Busby saying he has a recording of, because remember Busby's been talking about how he's the one that's been being harassed, and his that somebody associated with Jay-Z, a private investigation firm, has been calling up all his former employees, current employees, former clients, trying to get them to sue. And let's pull up his page here. And I just think all of this, like, I mean, like I said, lawyers can be complete scumbags and still have clients that have legitimate cases. So I think eventually we're just going to have to have the spotlight turn off Tony Buzbee and on to the actual allegations. And then I think if they can disprove, or if Jay-Z's camp has anything to discredit the allegations, the Tony Buzbee is a bad guy narrative will carry more weight. Because right now it's like, okay, he's a bad guy, but how does that directly relate to the charges here? And of course, with the letter that was filed today, where Alex Spiro is talking about the woman who contacted the law firm yesterday and said that she had contacted Tony Buzbee's law firm about filing a case against somebody different than this, not Diddy, not Jay-Z, and they ended up ditching her when she wouldn't go along with their story about, oh, we need you to say she was held down, that kind of thing. So obviously kind of the implication from Jay-Z's camp here is that this is all just made up, and they've said in the filings, Spiro said in the filings that these allegations are totally false. So I think people are just waiting for more connection there, and I think people will put more stock into the Tony Buzbee is not credible and is a bad guy if they see an actual connection between that and this case. Like, what did he do in this case, kind of thing. I see. So, Meghann, have you seen the leaked footage of Diddy pleading not guilty at the federal court hearing? Yes, I have. Well, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I kind of scrolled through and saw it, and I was like, yeah, that looks like somebody was filming the closed circuit TV with their phone. And yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, I wouldn't expect like the New York Times or like really any news agency to like actually write an article about it. If that person was ever identified and like charged with a crime, somebody would probably write an article about it, but I don't know. It's going to be really hard for them to identify who did that, because there's closed circuit TVs like that in the media room. Like when you guys see Inner City Press, that's what he's watching when he's doing his live tweeting. But they also, if there's an overflow room, they will have those TVs in the overflow courtroom. But technically, you're not supposed to bring your phones in there. So it could be kind of easy for them to narrow down who it did, because I think they have cameras around that courthouse too. But I don't know. I haven't heard anything else about it. And I mean, it's not going to jeopardize the case at all. It's just going to, if they ever find out who did that, they could be in a lot of trouble. And it just might make it harder for people going forward trying to cover that case. But there's already a blanket electronics ban at the courthouse unless you have a media badge. But yeah, I mean, it was, I definitely, I wouldn't expect it to ever really come up in court. But here, back to Busby. Like I said, the back and forth on this is exhausting. I was like, rich celebrities are just going to eat themselves alive. Like all of us poor people are just going to be like left with like the remnants of it all. It's like, it all just makes me want to like take the rest of the year off and just go drive somewhere and forget about all this stuff. You know, it's like, and there's so much, especially on Twitter, there's so many bots like driving the conversations on both sides. And I just think the overall public gets a little sick of that. You know, it's like all this kind of PR stuff is just being shoved down our throats, and we don't feel like anything's real anymore. But yeah, he says investigators, he has a quote marks around investigators, have called many of our law firm's current and former clients. What they didn't anticipate was one of the clients decided to record the conversation. It's shocking and illegal. Here is a portion taken from the transcript. Investigator says, in a couple of days, or maybe by next week, anyone Googling Busby and his company, his practice, are going into litigation, okay? Okay, and I saw that earlier. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what? Like, if you just Google Tony Buzbee, you're going to get caught up in some lawsuit? It was just weird. And I wish these people, instead of posting these transcripts, would show some real balls and post the actual phone call, man. Like, post a clip from this. Like, don't just let us read the transcript. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to just post the actual audio file? Why not just do that? But this is the investigator says, what we're trying to do is we are trying to put this thing together for the company that we're working for. We could get you paid. You could get money right soon, you know? We gave this kid $1,000 to start yesterday just to get him on the right path. At the end of the day, this is going to go through the courts. Busby is getting sued. And then this is Busby's comment. These guys are on tape offering to pay clients to sue our firm. That's a crime. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess I'd need to hear a little bit more about the tape to say that that's exactly what they were talking about there. I mean, who's the kid? I mean, okay, I can see why he thinks it's just, they're just, like I said, eventually it's going to have to come off of this. I mean, they're going to just have to actually do something about this instead of just posting about it on Twitter. But I think the focus is going to have to come off them and onto the actual allegations in the case. But like I said, I'm anticipating a filing from him tonight in the Jay-Z case, because he still has not responded to the request for an expedited hearing. But let's pull up the case file and see if we're missing anything. That's the thing. There's so many cases going on right now. So this is the court listener file. Request for issuance of summons. That's pretty much everything. This is the letter where they're complaining about. This is on yesterday when they say the woman called and was talking about her bad experience with Busby's law firm. It says, on December 9th, we filed a motion seeking to have the court decline to permit the plaintiff in this case to proceed anonymously. As noted in that motion, plaintiff's attorney Anthony Busby has engaged in a campaign to leverage unfounded and heinous allegations against celebrities to secure large settlements. He seeks neither justice nor peace for his victims. He seeks only to benefit himself. Okay. On the afternoon of December 9th, 2024, after we had submitted the motion and accompanying exhibits, our offices received outreach via phone call and email from an individual who provided her name to us, though wishes to remain anonymous. Mari Henderson spoke to this woman who informed Ms. Henderson that she had previously reached out to the Busby law firm with respect to allegations of trafficking and abuse unrelated to Mr. Combs or Mr. Carter. The Busby law firm representatives with whom she spoke asked the woman when she met Diddy, even though her account did not relate to Mr. Combs at all. Members of the Busby firm encouraged this woman to pursue her claims anonymously, even though she did not have any interest in doing so. When the woman raised wanting to talk to law enforcement, she was informed that it was not encouraged. After several outreaches, the woman again spoke with members of the Busby law firm, who she felt were pressing her to make allegations of being drugged, held down, and physically assaulted, allegations that were not true. When this woman declined to adopt the version of events proposed by members of the Busby firm, she was summarily dropped as a client. Though the woman provided her identity to Ms. Henderson, she wishes to remain unnamed at this time for fear of retaliation by the Busby law firm. The information provided by this woman is in the declaration of Mari Henderson, attached here to Exhibit A. This information, which came to Quinn Emanuel unsolicited, is further evidence in support of Mr. Carter's right to thoroughly investigate, test, and respond to the spurious allegations that have been leveled against him. We respectfully request that the court consider this additional information, which was received by Quinn Emanuel only after the filing of yesterday's motion was complete, in connection with the motion to deny the plaintiff's request to proceed anonymously. So that right now is the last filing in the Jay-Z lawsuit. But like I said, I'm anticipating Busby's going to take a break from tweeting and maybe write a court filing here soon. But no, I mean, he probably has staff that helps him with all that stuff too. But he's been active on here. But and like I said, I mean, the extortion claims, it clearly was a PR thing and try to get out ahead of this story. The idea that there's any kind of legitimate extortion, like legal case against Tony Buzbee, there would have to be more than if what he says is true, that he sent a demand letter or a letter asking for a confidential mediation. Like I said, the extortion prosecutions that we've seen, like against Michael Avenatti, which was a decent jury trial. I mean, it was up to the jury on that, and he got convicted, but he had gone to meetings with Nike executives and was like on tape record, basically threatening to take down their stock by doing a press conference, and he wanted 10 million. And the client was against it too. I remember one of the main witnesses for the prosecution in his extortion trial was Gary Franklin, the client that he had, that was like, no, Michael did all this stuff without my permission. I didn't want him to do all that stuff. So that's important to remember, though. A lot of times the clients, like if there is a sleazy lawyer, a lot of the times the clients are just victims in the whole thing. But this is Busby last night. He says, no one has made any threats. Jay-Z's assertions are bogus and laughable. Instead, our firm sent a standard demand letter seeking a mediation on behalf of a woman who alleges Jay-Z sexually assaulted her as a minor. The letter was vetted and approved by our client, whose preference was to attempt resolution short of filing a lawsuit. This approach is common in these types of cases. What you are seeing played out now is a coordinated and desperate effort to focus the public's attention on me personally to avoid attention on the allegations being made by my clients. This effort has included harassing my family and colleagues and even offering former clients money to sue me, which is illegal. And then we saw he posted his transcript of the phone call he got, or the phone call a client got and recorded. He says, when an alleged perpetrator behaves in this manner, wildly asserting that a basic demand letter is extortion, and aggressively using the media to attack the opposing lawyer while at the same time ignoring the allegations being made by the alleged victim, it reminds me of a famous line from Shakespeare. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. We intend to address all these issues with the court in due course. Let me be clear. We will not be bullied or intimidated by these shenanigans, and our clients won't be silenced. So, yeah, a lot going on here, but my article also has, this is on legalaffairsandtrials.com, also has Jay-Z's statement, which if you guys haven't seen that, that's kind of old news now, but this is what he posted Sunday night. I saw it on the Rock Nation Twitter page. It was also on Instagram. But thank you, Janet, for noticing. I appreciate it. It was, especially now with the YSL trial being over, because I was so busy doing the clips on here of all the YSL testimony, but I have a lot more time to cover all the Diddy stuff. So I want to do at least a once a week summary of the Diddy docket, because there's so many cases right now to keep track of, and there's all these filings in his criminal case, and I think it would be good to do a roundup of here's everything that was filed this week. And I'd also like to do a live where I sum up everything that's going on and kind of give people an update on everything. So thank you guys for checking it out. Hit me a like if you can. Yeah, I've seen that he's being sued. I've seen that Busby is being sued by a former client himself. I mean, it's just a mess. Like I said, gosh, these people are just going to eat each other alive. But like I said, all this stuff about Busby, I mean, there's so much to it, but it'll be a lot more relevant if they can immediately expose some kind of problem with the case. Because I think people are just like, I saw somebody being on Twitter, it's like, the lawyer can be the worst guy in the world, but are the allegations true or not? You know, and I think that's just what everybody is waiting for, is if they can disprove it or connect it on that. Because I've seen all the Twitter stuff. You know, some people are saying that, oh, if you look at this photo, it shows that he was here and not there, and these. So it seems like they've got stuff, but you know, why? You know, maybe we're going to hear about that later on. But whether we hear from the judge, I did see somebody saying, you know, it's December and the holidays are coming up. It seems like we probably won't get a response on this till next year. I would definitely expect something from her this week about the expedited consideration. But I think she could say, I mean, she's not just going to dismiss the case outright, like based on that filing, but she could say, I'm open to revisiting the anonymity thing through a briefing schedule. She could set a new briefing schedule. It's already been kind of brief. Busby has already filed his brief asking, so maybe she could just decide it already. I don't know. There's just a lot of different options that they could do, and that's one thing that's so interesting about these like 22 or however many lawsuits that Busby has filed. I think all of them, they just get randomly assigned to judges in the Southern District. So they're all with different judges, and the judges are taking different approaches, as we saw. That most of the judges have agreed that the plaintiff can preliminary proceed anonymously, but we saw that one judge who said nope, and now the plaintiff has identified herself. So it's kind of just luck of the draw on that. Yeah, what this has to do with the case. I'm a little late on that comment, but I think we were talking about, you know, all the other, you know, the stuff that we're hearing from Jay-Z's camp right now. But yeah, the statement that I saw somebody pointing out that they were at Lion King last night and that Beyonce was there, and you know, and to me that was just obviously like that was all about their daughter. You know, they didn't want to ruin her big night, and you know, they had to go and like show a united parent front for her and make sure everybody knew. So, or I mean, just make sure like she had like the focus and everything, and a normal night. But yeah, that must have been awkward for her, and I feel bad for her. It must suck to have you know, her big moment, and it's like almost over. I don't know if it really was overshadowed, because like I said, most of the coverage I was seeing, like nobody at the event was like asking them about it seemed like. But you know, of course the headlines are about, you know, Jay-Z stepping out for his daughter's premiere while this is going on. So, but it was weird how it was a Sunday night filing too. I mean, there's just so much going on behind the scenes. Like I don't usually see Sunday night filings, but again, we've probably all seen Jay-Z's statement by now, but this is the kind of stuff that's all in the Substack. But he calls it a blackmail attempt. Says it had the opposite effect. It made me want to expose you for the fraud you are in a very public fashion. And the thing is, I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but I'm like, I think a lot of people seem to know that Tony Buzbee is like has a lot to him, that he's not the greatest guy. Like, not a lot of this stuff is like news to a lot of people. It's just people are wondering, how does it actually affect this case? It's like, okay, so did he just make this woman up? Like, does she actually exist? I mean, people are just waiting for some kind of connection there. And then if there is some kind of connection and there's like just some obvious problem with the case, then all this Tony Buzbee is a fraudster stuff is going to have a lot more weight to it, but we're all just kind of waiting for that. But like I said, I would anticipate some kind of filing from Tony Buzbee tonight, unless he's just pretty soon. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie Idiocracy, but you could see a scene in Idiocracy where court filings have become tweets. Like, if you just tweet really long, like, it counts as like an ECF filing in federal court or something. But I think Buzbee knows he should file some kind of opposition, or he can do a reply to Spiro's motion to reject the anonymity request. He should do that. And then he can also respond to the letter that requests an expedited hearing. And he can also respond to the letter written today that talks about the client, Busby's client, who called Spiro's law firm. So he's got a lot of stuff he could respond to. Like I said, it just depends on what the judge is going to do. But with the high profile case and Spiro asking for an expedited hearing, I would expect to hear from her this week. I mean, Busby needs to get his stuff in like tonight, but we could hear from her tomorrow maybe. But like I said, she's not just going to dismiss this case. I mean, maybe eventually she will under, proper dismissal motions and everything, but I don't think so yet. One second here. Oh, I'm muted. It's funny. Thanks for the heads up. But yeah, let me pull this up here. But yeah, again, for people who are just tuning in, and this is my Substack on legalaffairsandtrials.com, I've got an article that really sums up everything going on in the Jay-Z lawsuit. He was just added as a defendant in a sexual assault lawsuit against Diddy that alleges they attacked a 13-year-old girl back in 2000 after the Video Music Awards in New York City. And Jay-Z also has his own allegations of extortion against the plaintiff's lawyer, who is Tony Buzbee, who's a well-known lawyer who's filed almost dozens of others against Diddy. This is the first lawsuit against against Jay-Z. I was seeing the comments. I was like, I thought I took myself off mute. I am off mute. But anyway, is it still no filings for? Still no filings from Busby in the case, but like I said, all this celebrity back and forth. I'm like, rich people are just eating themselves alive, and so much of this stuff, so much of the online discussion, a lot of it is genuine, but when you see where a lot of it comes from, I mean, there's so many bots and stuff, and I hope that people can just sign off the internet and not just live on there all day, because this kind of celebrity back and forth, and there's so many. I mean, most people don't have any money, so the idea of all the money that's going into this kind of PR effort kind of thing, it's just like, I've always thought that the reason, I think the rise of Meghann the Reporter and the Meghann Thee Stallion Tory Lanez case happened because it was just the truth. There were no PR people, there were no press releases, there was no, blah, 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 blah. It was just me reporting what was going on, and I think people embrace that. Like, so much, there's just so much tit for tat now in the world. Like, people just don't know what to trust anymore in terms of what's real. Like there's always like an off the record email, and then, oh, here's the bullshit press release we want you to push out to the public. It's like, dude, the public is tired of this shit. Like, they know it, they know it's bullshit, like there's like grains of truth to it or something, but when will they show some evidence? It seems like if they have a hearing on this, we should be hearing more from Busby on it. I see some people, lots of PR in the Lanes case. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, but I'm talking about, that's why people embraced me. When I started covering that, I used Twitter a little bit, but I really didn't. I was not part of that whole bot, PR. I had never even heard of the case before, and I was just, like I said, reporting what was going on in the courtroom, and I think that's what made it really take off. And like I said, like, there was tons of PR and all that social media bullshit surrounding the case, and I think that's one reason people were so hungry for something that was like actually real, like they could actually feel like they could trust it. But yeah, somebody jokes he's gonna show the evidence in a Twitter thread. Yeah, I think Tony Buzbee still understands that Twitter and X is not PACER in the ECF for federal courts, but I would expect some kind of filing from him soon in response to this. But yeah, let's see. And remember, Court Listener, guys. I always got to give a shout out to Court Listener, and especially for a case like this with Diddy. So many people read these documents that if you guys go to the Court Listener website for this, you can see pretty much all the documents for free. Not every single one of them. And if something gets filed, it might take like maybe an hour for the free version to come up, because somebody who has a PACER account and then also has Recap installed has to go in and view it and then make it available for everybody. But that usually happens pretty fast in a case like this. So if you see it now, we got, this is the letter motion to expedite hearing. This is the letter talking about the client, Busby's client, who called. And this is Mari. She's with Quinn Emanuel here in Los Angeles, because Alex does most of the stuff, but I've seen Mari has been involved in a bunch of stuff before. Oops. She has her name on the extortion lawsuit, and they also represent Meghann in like the Milagro case and some other stuff here. But her declaration talks about how she spoke by telephone with a resident of Texas whose name is known to me. And this is the client from yesterday. It was in early October 2024. So this was his big splashy press conference that he did, where he announced I think he said he had 120 people he would be filing lawsuits on behalf of. But the woman spoke with 3 members of Busby's firm and provided details regarding her experiences as victims of trafficking by celebrities entirely unrelated to Mr. Combs. She was told they would take on her representation. An attorney pressed her about at what point did you meet Diddy, even though she made clear that her case was unrelated to Mr. Combs. And this is basically just the same thing we've heard, but just in different form from the attorney that actually spoke to her. It says, when the woman made clear she was unwilling to adapt to the narrative Mr. Busby's firm laid out and only wanted to speak her truth, she was dropped as a client and told Mr. Busby's firm was unwilling to represent her any longer. She felt as though she had expressed that she was not a coachable victim. She was dismissed. Excuse me here. So like I said, I think people are just waiting for the actual connection to the case, but this should be coming out. Anyway, yeah, if you guys have any questions, ask them. But again, I'm going to be trying to do these lives a little bit more regularly about the Diddy case. There's so much going on. There's so many filings all the time. The back and forth between these two is just unreal. But
conversation right now, someone who's been following this story all weekend, of course, legal affairs journalist Meghann Cuniff. She joins me. Meghann, good to see you. You know, you and I have talked so much about the Diddy saga. And I think I ask you every time, you know, what other famous people could possibly be swept up in it? And now we have a name, Jay-Z, over the weekend. Did you see this coming?
I think we were all waiting for some other celebrity names to be dropped in the civil cases. I think the criminal case is a different matter, whether we'll see other celebrities charged in there. But if we were to believe Tony Buzbee, we all should have seen something like this coming, because he said that other powerful people would be named and exposed when he made his announcement that he was going to be filing a lot of lawsuits. So I think this has just been a matter of time. There also was an indication that something was up in the last couple of weeks when the lawsuit was filed against Tony Buzbee in Los Angeles alleging extortion. It did not name Jay-Z, but it said on behalf of an anonymous celebrity. It was filed by Quinn Emanuel, which is a law firm that does a lot of work with Jay-Z.
All right. So to your point, I mean, this has been somewhat in the works for some time now, being made public here. I want to put up your tweet today with a screen grab there of a page of the suit. You're saying there it names Jay-Z as a defendant, and it accuses both Jay-Z and Diddy of raping a 13-year-old girl in 2000. It was filed by attorney Tony Buzbee, and Jay-Z has accused Busby of extortion. Now, what grounds are Jay-Z's attorneys claiming the judge should throw out the lawsuit here? Do they have a case?
They have a much better case to get an order saying that the plaintiff needs to identify herself. And they've also requested in this motion that they either want her to identify herself or for the allegations to be dismissed. I think the case law favors her identifying herself through an amended complaint or something like that. We've seen that same litigation in other lawsuits that have been filed against Diddy. So this is the same type of motion actually that Busby has filed in other cases seeking to proceed anonymously. And the judge in this case actually did already allow it back in November. When the initial lawsuit was filed in October, Busby filed a request to allow the plaintiff to proceed anonymously. The judge allowed it, but did say it was subject to revisiting. And Busby filed another motion when he filed his new complaint identifying Jay-Z. But this will be the first time that there's been significant opposition to the anonymity. Beforehand, Diddy does not have lawyers actively working these cases right now. So it was just Busby asking the judge and the judge going along with it.
I mean, that was my next point and question I was going to ask. You know, it didn't seem like there was much of an effort mounted on Diddy's behalf via his team against some of the lawsuits, the many lawsuits brought by Busby. And now you see that flipped on its head. I mean, with Jay-Z's response to this, essentially claiming Busby is extorting him, calling him a lawyer, quote unquote, in quotation, saying he's a terrible person. How's Busby going to weather this?
You know, I think he's prepared for quite a battle. He seems to be responding online in kind and digging in and saying this only emboldens his clients. So I think at some point, everyone is going to just have to take a step back and focus on the actual allegations and the fact that there's somebody who says that she was attacked when she was 13. And I think that's what Jay-Z's team is trying to do by getting her identity. They're, of course, making the case that they need to prepare a defense here by knowing who it is, getting other possible witnesses. So I think eventually the tit for tat between these two is going to have to turn to the actual allegations and whether they can be proven or disproven.
Yeah, Busby, with this lengthy post on X over the weekend saying this, that regarding the Jay-Z case and his efforts to silence my clients, he says, Carter previously denied being the one who sued me and my firm. He filed his frivolous case under a pseudonym there. And he says that when an alleged perpetrator behaves in this manner, wildly asserting that
read that earlier, but yeah, like I said, the tit for that, these two. Here comes drama. Thank you so much. My newest member, too. I wanted to say hi and thank you so much for your membership. Like I said, I've got so much more time now that I'm not just married to the clips of the YSL trial, the testimony clips. I want to do a lot more lives, cover a lot more cases on here. ASAP Rocky's trial is coming up, and then the murder for hire case with Little Dirk is just right over in LA federal court. So there's a lot more cases I'll be covering here, and I'd like to do more interviews too, like the interview I did with Trisha, the Young Thug's jury consultant. That was a great one. If you guys haven't seen, check it out. Yesterday, and I'm got to make some more clips on there. But thank you. Here comes drama for the love and the subscription and everything. I'm going to really try to start promoting the subscription. We can really get a membership group going here and do some cool stuff because there's so many big cases going on. I mean, I was just in court this morning for Danny Masterson's case. Actually, I covered it for Tony Ortega because Shawn Hawley, prosecutors had accused Shawn Hawley and other lawyers of having inappropriate contact with jurors because, of course, they're working on Masterson's appeal. But Shawn Hawley was cleared of any wrongdoing, but it's the appellate lawyers who they had an investigator who went and talked to some jurors, and the way she worded her questions kind of made it sound like the juror had to talk to her and was like not cooperating by not talking to her, when the law in California says that jurors absolutely do not have to talk to them if they don't want to. And jurors are supposed to be told of that. So the judge is going to report the two appellate attorneys and the investigator to the state bar for possible discipline on that because she said that they were violating that. I frankly doubt anything will ever come from it. I mean, the state bar barely does anything when attorneys are like stealing millions from their clients. I doubt they're going to do anything about that. But just to have a referral like that is very not good for them. So, I mean, there's stuff like that I cover. It's my proximity to the courthouses too. I can get over there pretty fast. So, like I said, I've got a lot more time now that the YSL trial is over. So I look forward to doing that more. But here, let me play the end of the interview for you.
Basic demand letter is extortion and aggressively using the media to attack the opposing lawyer while at the same time ignoring the allegations being made by the alleged victim. He says it reminds me of a famous line from Shakespeare. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. He says we intend to address all these issues with the court in due course. Let me be clear, he says, we will not be bullied or intimidated by these shenanigans, and our clients won't be silenced. So a very, very strong statement there, of course, with the Shakespeare line from Much Ado About Nothing. I want to talk about reputational harm. We know what has transpired with Diddy and what he has suffered on the reputational front here. Will it be the same case for Jay-Z, rather?
I think that definitely remains to be seen because right now this is one lawsuit, and I feel like his team is really hoping that they're going to weather the storm here, and they've made some good offensive, defensive moves, such as filing this extortion lawsuit. And right now, the narrative around this isn't just that Jay-Z is being sued for sexual assault, but also that Jay-Z is accusing the lawyer of extortion. So I think they've already managed to get a good grasp on it. It just really is going to remain to be seen about what happens with the actual allegations. The public can think that Tony Buzbee is a bad guy all they want. It's just going to matter, are his allegations valid or not?
Meghann, do you anticipate Busby to take up Jay-Z on Jay-Z's dare, essentially saying, if this rises to the level of how you describe it, file criminal charges against me, bring it out of the civil sphere? Will he do that?
I mean, we don't. Busby is not a district attorney with charging powers in New York City or New Jersey, so he couldn't do it himself. So we don't actually know if there's been a police report filed. Perhaps there has, perhaps there hasn't. I think there are statute of limitations issues to look at. I think New Jersey does not have a statute of limitations for child sex abuse, but those would all be issues to be considered. But like the reporter said in the previous segment, there's such a different standard for criminal versus civil cases that could also be something that comes into play.
Yeah. And of course, in Jay-Z's lengthy statement put out by Rock Nation, his record label and brand, he's deeply concerned about how this will really not impact his reputation, but his family. How is he going to explain this to his very young children here? His attorneys, though, high-powered. I mean, they're bulldogs. Alex Spiro represented Alec Baldwin. Spiro has represented Elon Musk in the past. He knows what he's doing, right?
Yes. He seems to definitely have a good track record. We saw him in court in the Alec Baldwin case, and he seems to take on matters with a lot of substance, and he knows how to bring out the right issues and litigate the right issues. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of that here. It will be interesting to see him, go up against Tony Buzbee in court if we get there. But then, I mean, it's also interesting to think about Diddy's role in this. And as a co-defendant charged with a criminal case, he has every reason to not want to participate in this civil lawsuit. He would not be sitting for a deposition or allowing any kind of discovery around him as long as he has these criminal charges pending. So it will be interesting to see how, when that eventually comes to play, how it affects the lawsuit moving forward, if there's some kind of stay in place or if Jay-Z is able to get his day in court if this case is not dismissed. Yeah, and of course, not to mention Busby's no spring chicken here. I mean, he took on Deshaun Watson there in the Houston area, and, he has vowed to fight on behalf of his client, this plaintiff here, who, to your point, remains anonymous. Say she no longer remains anonymous due to various filings and successes that Jay-Z's legal team gets here. That extortion claim by Jay-Z's team, will that have even more heft, so to speak, or not? That I think that remains to be seen. It seems like the kind of lawsuit that could be not decided until we see some more resolution here, because I will say that's from last night. And as I was saying earlier, when you actually read into that lawsuit, I mean, the idea that it has any kind of legs, I think is weak. I mean, I would never expect there to be. Eventually, we're going to see a trial where Tony Buzbee's on trial for extortion and the jury ends up awarding $1 million to Jay-Z. No, I think that case is just going to go away. But it was, like I said, it was a good way for them to kind of try to get out in front of the story and really put the focus on the plaintiff's attorney. But I think right now people have heard so much about it that they're just waiting for the connection between all this and the case to show, okay, why is this case BS kind of thing. But I want to say hi. I'm Mac Music. Thanks for saying hi. What's up? Mixed Chick too. Everybody's coming in here. So thanks for saying hey. Like I said, I'm going to be doing more lives. I'd like to do one at least once a week on the Diddy stuff, kind of maybe carve out a day. I'm not sure which day, but there's just so many filings, so much stuff all the time with his cases that we might need a regular update. But if you guys go to legalaffairsandtrials.com and sign up for the website, my Substack, you guys can get all this in your inbox. I try to include a lot of court documents and everything. I haven't been publishing as regularly over the last few months because I've been so focused on the YSL trial, and doing the YouTube clips takes so much time. But now that that's over, I've got a lot more time, so I'm looking forward to doing it. So yeah, everybody hit the like button, give a subscription. Thanks to my member. Here comes drama. Gonna get some more members here. Barry Wonder, how do you feel about the claim itself? Obviously, we don't have any possible evidence they might have, but just based off the claims, I mean, it's so hard to. I mean, I just wouldn't want to say either way, because obviously there is a lot to this going on behind the scenes. So, I mean, I think we're in for a lot more information to come out even this week. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that that the lawsuit was filed back in October. I think it was October 20th. It was first filed, and it just named Diddy and all his companies as defendants, and then had the two celebrities, celebrity A and B, in on this attack. And then Sunday night they identify Jay-Z, but they still haven't identified the other celebrity who supposedly witnessed this. I don't know. I just think there's all this stuff going on. But I did bring up the I see somebody asking about allegedly 2 minor boys. I did see I brought up in the extortion lawsuit. I mean, they acknowledged themselves that Busby has been threatening to publicize another allegation involving a minor, involving a male. So we hadn't seen anything with that yet, if he's filed another lawsuit or anything like that. But I think that's obviously coming. So yeah. So thank you, Mixed Chick, for the membership. I need to hook everything up and get all my membership perks up, all the badges and everything. Maybe we can all be googly-eyed bitches or something. But yeah, I think it is interesting to see how aggressive Jay-Z is being, because like I said, I've heard that. I mean, that's how it can go. The guy Bradford Cohen, who represents a lot of rappers and is pretty active on Instagram, I saw him post about this, and he was saying that, you know, there's really, and I made this point too on some of my interviews, that it's really only 2 ways it can go. You can either settle quietly, like do a cost-benefit analysis and settle to prevent reputational harm. You know, doesn't say anything about whether you actually did it or not, but that would be understandable. Or you can go, you know, hard fighting it. And Cohen wrote out this whole thing about things you could do. But yeah, I mean, that seems to be, there's only real 2 options, and Jay-Z is obviously taking the latter here. So again, I would expect more filings tonight. I'll try to post those on X and Blue Sky. Really, I'm trying to get on Blue Sky more. That's the best one, because all those bot accounts, like I was talking about, those are all on X. I mean, the bot accounts are kind of everywhere, but they are everywhere on X. They're all over X, and Blue Sky is really taking off. It's like a kind of a cleaner place to go. So if you guys can follow me on there, that'll be great. But Blue Sky and X are the places where I'm posting a lot of court documents. I'm trying to post them on Instagram too, but it's a little harder on there. But thank you, Mixed Chicks. You follow me in there. You're awesome. You're subscribing. You're following me on Blue Sky. I appreciate it. So yeah, the lawyers are going at it. Like I said, this whole thing just makes me want to take the rest of the year off and check the roads up at Yosemite National Park and see if it's snowing. Because if it's not, I want to go drive up there and get lost and not have cell service for a while, so I can just check out on this. But gosh. But I know I'm not going to do that, because like I said, I think it is pretty snowy up there. But I'm here following all the drama and all the filings, and it's interesting too. Like I said, I've got a lot more time to follow it now that the YSL trial's over. So I want to keep filing it, and I want to get some kind of weekly, at least, you know, do a set Diddy docket YouTube live summary, and then also when there's breaking news, big breaking news, cover it. I want to get more active on here with you guys. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Like I said, if you didn't check out the interview with Trisha, I've got it on my channel, and then I'm going to be posting more clips. I already got a couple on there, but it takes a while to do. I need to they're so kind of drab when I just post those clips. I need to do something about the thumbnails and really kind of spruce up my lighting, my setup in here. But that'll all come in time next year. So thanks everybody. Here comes drama and Mixed Chick, my members. I love it. But look for another live soon. And like I said, I'll keep everyone updated. Subscribe to the Substack if you can. Pinky Blue, thanks so much. But legalaffairsandtrials.com is the Substack. So thank you, Pinky Blue. See you guys later.